Hello, and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Now that we have learned a great deal about the signs and the symbols of music so you can actually read what the music is telling you to do besides play the notes, I want to start playing some music with you and have you check and see if you can understand and follow the various signs. I'm going to go from simple to more complex. So I'm going to start off with this song right here, which I wrote up a little while ago. Now, this is a waltz. How do I know it's a waltz? Well, it's in 3/4 time. Most waltzes are 3/4 time. And as I've said before, I like writing in the key of G with a 1 sharp, and it's a treble clef, so we're using a treble clef instrument. Now, I'm going to play this. It's a waltz. I'm going to play it slow to begin with, and for the signs that you need to watch for, there is a retard right here, there's a fermata right here, and there's a cutoff right here. There's a sharp right there. I'll be going into that sharp. That means something. And then this sign, a tempo. Now, what do they mean? The retard means you're slowing it down right here. When I get to that D sharp, there's a fermata over it. I'm gonna hold it. Not long, but I'm going to hold it. And then I'm going to cut off the music so it'll be just stopped for a fraction of a second. Then I'm going to start it again at the original tempo. And so it says a tempo. It'll go back to the speed that I started playing with to begin with. And then I go over it. And there's another D sharp here. And then here's your dotted quarter, which gives you 3 beats. And there's an octave here between this low D and this high D. Another retard. And then we have a hold or a tie from this note, which is 3 beats, to this note, which is 2 beats, plus the rest, which gives it a 3 beats. So notice that we're starting off with 3 beats. There's no introduction to the song. It's a waltz that I wrote, but I could put an introduction in. But right now, let me just play it, and I'll play it slowly and focus on what this music is and see if you can follow along. It's a fairly simple piece, so I don't think you'll have any trouble in following it along. So I will begin. That's the whole song. So let me play it now a little bit faster. And because I love waltzes, that's why I write so many of them. But I like to get them fairly fast. But when you start practicing a piece, do not go fast. Go very slow on it until you have mastered the fingering and the timing. And you see, you've got so much to master at once that it's not good to try to play it full speed ahead when you're not familiar with it. It's good to take a piece of music, hold it in your hand, and look at it. When you look at it, what are you noticing? It is a waltz, 3/4 time. Not all 3/4 time has to be a waltz, but usually it is. And then here's your key signature. You have an F sharp, so you know it's in the key of G, and you can count it a little in your head. 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you look at the signs, and you kind of become as familiar as you can with it without playing it. Then when you do start to play it, notice what the notes are, how to finger those notes. This is going to be a D, this is going to be a B. Now there's quite a jump here. That's a 6. And if you don't know how to jump and adjust your breath so you make sure that you get the right note, you can actually squeal. Let me play it a little faster. Now, I want to get to, let me see, whatever I do with my pointer. I want to get to, I slowed down here. I used the fermata. I held it, but not very, very long. And then I cut it off. Just for a fraction of a beat. I didn't cut it off very much. Why would I slow down here and cut it off? Well, it just makes the music a little bit more dramatic. It makes it more dramatic because you are actually stopping something and then you're restarting it. And when you restart it, you're going to the original tempo. Now, it's not a hard song, but it does make a difference. If I played that without stopping, without using those signs, you would get something like this. It wouldn't be bad, it just wouldn't be as good. There's less drama to it. You know, it has more meaning. It's easier to listen to. It's more exciting if you put something like that in. Now, I mentioned this D sharp. This is a enharmonic note, but I want to show you something. I think what I'm going to do, this is, remember, D sharp, if you can get kind of a grasp on that. And let me put this up. I just want to explain something to you. It's a low E, it's a low D, so it'd be about here, and it's a low, and it's a sharp. Now a sharp is 1/2 step above. I'll use my pointer for that. Here's the D right here. Well, let me use this D. It doesn't really make any difference anyway. Here's a D, and then it's sharp. So a sharp is 1/2 step up. So it would be this note here that I actually played. Now, why wouldn't I put an E flat? The sharp is 1 step up, and the flat is 1/2 step down. If I wanted to, I could have written that as an E flat and ended up on the same note. Let me play it on the recorder, and you'll see. All right, here's your D. Here's your D, low D. When I want it sharp, I want it 1/2 step up. One way to do it is just to slide that left finger a little bit, and that, so it's half whole. You can see the difference. It just makes for drama, but why not an E flat? Here's the E. And if I do the same fingering, that's the E flat, that's the D, that's the D sharp. D sharp is going to be the same note, and I'll use one of the other Ds. It may be easier for you to read. Okay, so D, D sharp is here, E, E flat is here. They're both the same note. I could have written it in that way and it wouldn't have made any difference, but the reason that I didn't is that this song is in a sharp key. Because it's in a sharp key, it's more consistent to write it as a D sharp than an E flat. But if I'd put it in E flat, it would have been the same thing. So when you see a note that's a sharp or a flat, then you just can understand. Now here I did put it in here, but I think it may be a little too small for you to see. So G, F sharp, E, and then D sharp. The sharp, the fact that it's a D sharp and not an E flat, which would be the same note, is the fact that it just makes it more consistent with the key signature of sharps. Now I know there are some times when if a B, that if I'm playing a B flat, I do that rather than play an A sharp, which is the same thing. So if I put this up again, and I don't know what I did with the pointer again, but supposing here's your B, and here's your B flat. just 1/2 step down. It could be an A sharp, but usually you don't get A sharps in music, thank you. Usually you don't get A sharps in music, you usually get B flats instead. It's easier for students to read because B flat is a very common note. Here's your B, here's your B flat, here's your A, here's your A sharp. And it's an enharmonic note. This note can be used as either B flat or A sharp. It's the same note. If I put it down here, it may be easier for you to read. Here's the B, right here. B flat is going to be right here, 1/2 step down. Here's the A, and 1/2 step up, it will be sharp. But you don't get A sharps unless you get a lot of sharps in the music. So it's easier for students to understand, easier for them to see if you write that B as a flat if you want that note rather than as a sharp. So in this particular piece of music, if I had a B and I wanted it flatted, instead of using the A sharp, even though the song is in has got sharps in it, it would be easier for a student to read if I did it as B flat. It's easier for most people to read. If you look at scales, you have, for the flatted scales, you have the key of F has 1 flat in it, and it's the B flat. So it's not that unusual to have B flats in music. 1 sharp is the key of G, 1 flat is the key of F. But 1 sharp in the key of G is an F sharp, 1 flat in the key of F on the flatted side would be the B flat that would be flatted. Now you kind of learn all of this as you go when you learn how to read music. So let me show you a little bit about the keyboard. We have plenty of time to do this. This is not a full scale keyboard, but it's close. And this is the C. Whenever you have a keyboard, you're going to have 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, up and down the whole scale. The white key, which is on the left of those 2 black notes, and then the key right next to it on the left is always going to be a C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 2 black notes, and the key to the left of it is a C. Now, if you want to go down 2 more keys, this is going to be an A every time. So I think it's easier when you know where the C is just to go down 2 and you get the A. See, music is like if you were to do the alphabet, you could do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it repeats to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it repeats to A. You go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Why not H, I, J and continue like that? Well, it's a fact of what we hear. We can hear A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We don't hear H, I, J. There's no such thing as H, I, J. Now, I do believe it exists, but I don't believe that the human ear can hear it. Animals can hear sounds that we can't hear. And if you get a dog whistle or a whistle and you blow a whistle, you may not be able to hear, but the dog is hearing. They have a different range of hearing than we do. So we go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and there's no H because we cannot hear it. Our ears are unable to hear it. Or we can start at C, which is the middle part of the keyboard, C, D, E, F, G, and then when you get to G, it goes back to the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So if you look in the bigger diagram I have down here, here's the C. I mean, there's C's all over the place. There's one down here. There's another one up here. It's not a full-scale keyboard, but it's big enough to show you what I mean. You have 2 black keys. The black keys are going to be, generally speaking, flats and sharps. A sharp is 1/2 step up. A flat is 1/2 step down. So these are going to be the regular notes. And if you have those 2 black keys, the note, as I said before, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I think that it's maybe easier for you to remember if I do that. 2 black keys, the note to the left of that black is a C. two black keys. The note to the left is a C, and if you go down, you get the B and the A. If you just go down 2 steps, you get the B and the A. Now, what's a full step and what's a half step? Well, a half step is just half of what a full step would be. So say I'm playing the recorder, G, A, B, C. What if I want half steps? G, and then the F sharp, then the F, then the E. That is called a chromatic scale. It's based upon half steps. And we'll get into that. So I would have gone, let's see, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. There's no black note there, so that's a half a step. To go from E to a half step, you'd have to go to the F sharp. Why? Because the F sharp, E to the F is a half step, and E to the F sharp would be another half step. So E to the F sharp is a full step. So sharps and flats, and half steps and steps are important. Let's take a look at this. Here's a C. C to D is 1 step. D to E is 1 step. E to F is a half step. Why? There is no black key in here, so it's a half step. So if you want a full step, you take it another half step further and go to the F sharp. That's why the key of G has 1 sharp in it. Okay, and it happens to be the F sharp. So from E to F and from B to C, they're both half steps because there's no black key there. So what you have to do is take 2 half steps. Well, 2 half steps is going to give you a whole step. If you want a whole step, C, D, step, D, E, step. This is a half step. This is another half step. D to E is a half step. F to F sharp is another half step. So therefore, if you want to go from E to another full step, you go to the F sharp. That gives you your full step. Then when you go from the F sharp to the G, that's another half step. Then from G to A, step. A to B, step. B to C is a half step, so if you want a full step, you go to that C sharp right here. You skip this note and go to the next one. The scales that you play are based upon whole steps and half steps. And a lot of times, as I said before, I write in the key of G, which is 1 sharp. Well, it's easier for students to play. And you know, if you've been playing instruments for a long time, you can get injuries. They're overuse injuries from playing an instrument in a long time. I've done a lot of work with flute. I've cut back on the flute because of shoulder injuries, because you have to hold a flute like this, and after years and years of it, your shoulders aren't so happy anymore. So I use the recorders, which use some of the, same fingerings as the flute, or I can make it. And it's up and down, so I don't have to hold it and ruin a shoulder. So any instrument you can get injured on, if you're playing a piano for years and years, what's going to be injured? The wrists and the fingers, overuse. And the elbows too. With a flute like that, it'll be your shoulders. What about your violins? You're doing this all the time. What's going to get injured? Elbow and shoulders. So when you play an instrument for years and years, if you play the same ones, you got to be careful because you can get injured by that. But you can always play other instruments to kind of compensate. Sometimes hold the instrument a little different way to compensate. But when it comes to a keyboard, as far as the sharps and the flats are concerned, you have a certain amount of half steps and you have a certain amount of whole steps, and you have to know what they are to play various keys. If I'm going to play in the key of C, like I'll play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Looking at this top scale, one step, half a step, one step, half a step. And that's the way they go. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half a step. And then it continues like that. All major scales are like that. In the key of G, one step, and this is going to be a half a step. Then one step, and you would use, for the key of G, you'd want to have the F sharp to get the whole step. Then you have the half a step. The last note would be a half a step. So I'm going to be going into this with you as well, but it's not as hard as you might think in terms of learning it. But remember, sharps are one half step up and flats are one half step down, and that you are playing, if you're on the keyboard, these notes here, the black notes for sharps and flats, and you can make a whole step when you get to a half a step by just going to another key a little bit beyond, and that makes a whole step if that's what you want. It gets to be mathematical, it gets to be a little complicated, but once you get used to it, it's not hard. So I think what I'm going to do maybe for the next session that we meet is show you the different keys and show you how they're arranged so they have the right number of half steps and the right number of whole steps, and you know exactly where to put the sharps and exactly where to put the flats so that you can make the scale that you want. So you can start on any key, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and get the scale that you want and keep that whole step, half step arrangement that all of the scales have, and get the scale that you want. Does it sound complicated? I think maybe I've made it sound more complicated than it is. But it is something you need to know. And it makes music interesting because it's a part of this whole pattern of being able to read music, which is what we're teaching you to do, to have you read music. So I'm going to close it here. We don't have, I don't want to fill in with too much more and get you much more confused. We'll continue with this next time. Please join me then.